Get in here. We are just starting. So we are going live and I'm in the group. Good. All right. So it is up and running in the group. Forgive me. I have this little tickle in my throat. Allergies have kicked in for the year. So I've got just a little tickle here. Check in. Yep, looks like everything is looking good. All right, so as we get started, I always kind of do the same routine. As you come in, you will be muted. You are welcome to unmute yourself. If you have something to say, you're also welcome to use the chat box, which I will be monitoring. When you put something into the chat, I'll usually read it out so that those of us who are not looking at the chat box can still hear what you have to say. And also so that on the recording, we will have access to all of those wonderful comments that come through. As we get started for today, what I'd love for you to put into the comments or unmute yourself to share is something that you have learned since being in social isolation. So that could be something you've learned about yourself. That could be something you've learned about technology that maybe you didn't know before. That could be something you learned about your students or your community or your family or what have you. So put something in the comments that you have learned during this social isolation / quarantine time. And then we will get started by sharing those. There we go. So I'm going to say one of the things that I have learned, which I think I knew before, but hadn't really thought of it as a significant challenge, is that the life of a school counselor / school social worker is a very isolating one at times. And what I heard from so many people during this time was that they felt like they were kind of left to kind of sink or swim on their own because there was so much focus on the how to get the academic piece up and running. So people were overwhelmed with how to get the academic piece up and running. And so everybody just kind of left the school counselors / social workers kind of out to their own, which I think reinforced that isolation that people were feeling. So I think that is probably what I have learned more, is like how important it is for us to have community and to have support. I would say the Facebook group has actually probably doubled in the last month. So we've gone from maybe having 300 or 400 people who were kind of moderately engaged, like they would definitely respond to different things, but we're almost to 1,000 people right now. So there's 1,000 school social workers and mental health providers across the country who have, well, really, and truthfully around the world. I have people from places I've had to look up on the map. So there are people from around the world who have joined in. So I think that knowing the value of community and the challenges of creating that community, specifically when you're in when you may be one of 2 or 3 in a building or a district that do your role. So Mindy says she's learned lots of technology during this time, which I can totally understand that. I would say I've learned a few things, like I've at least explored a few pieces of technology. Can't say that I've mastered them all. I was pretty comfortable with Zoom before, but even Zoom, they've added additional things to Zoom to make it more compliant and more user-friendly for educators and to prevent, kind of spammers and things like that. So just always being open to learn and grow and kind of get in there and be messy and have it not be pretty and still learn it. I think that was a lot of that has been going on. Okay, so feel free to chime in the chat with what you have learned. If something pops into your head during this time, feel free to share that. We're going to talk a little bit today. So my goals for today were to talk about some ways to support parents and teachers, specifically as we're talking about things, kids who aren't doing their e-learning, who might be struggling emotionally or behaviorally. So how we can kind of support that. I'm going to talk about CPS, which is used to be called collaborative problem solving. It is now called um, collaborative and proactive solutions. I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, which is it's basically an approach for working with, you can use it with really any age group, but I was specifically looking for working with kind of older kids because I wanted, sometimes we focus on the younger kids, and I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about working with older kids. So it's about creating collaborative experiences for problem solving. So I'll talk a little bit about that today. We're going to talk about some therapeutic ideas, things that can be done if you're continuing with this telehealth sort of approach, if you're still meeting with students. So I'm going to share a couple things there. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today is self-care for us, and how we can kind of manage some of that stress and anxiety and kind of internal chaos that might be going on. So one of the things that I have noticed is that we're hitting that spot where people are feeling really stressed, but overwhelmed, but almost kind of, they're almost like, I'm just done. I'm done with this. I want out. I'm tired of being in the house. I'm tired of this uncertainty. Like, this has been going on for long enough where people are really, they're almost at a crisis point emotionally. So I think part of that is the expectation that a lot of us had that this would be over May 1st, that we would be done and we'd be back to our regular lives. And now, I've seen some universities coming out and saying that kids are not going back in the fall, which means now these seniors who are graduating are not going to get to go off to college that first semester. They were thinking they were going to have this new, freshman experience. And my daughter attends Ball State, and so she's going into her senior year. She was planning on working the Ball State summer programs, and the summer programs have all now been canceled. And so she's now, so now we're the students who are looking ahead to next year are starting to say like, oh, now there's even more uncertainty. So I think people are responding to that. So when we talk about how to support our students, some of that support has to go to parents. It has to go to the people who are caring for them, because remember that the best thing that we can do for our students is make sure that they are supported by well-regulated adults who have their needs met. So as I'm going through kind of the things that we're talking about today, please make sure that, if it doesn't necessarily apply to you, think about whether or not it applies to the parent of a student you're working with, or maybe even a colleague, so like some of your teacher friends. Okay, so I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Yeah, so let's see here. Here we go, learning our technology. All right, so here we go. Share here. Okay, so this website is called livesinthebalance.org, and the CPS approach was founded by Dr. Ross Greene. If you've read anything by Dr. Ross Greene, he wrote The Explosive Child. So he does a lot of work with kids who've experienced trauma, kids who have really explosive behaviors. I actually learned about him and his work when I was working with families in a therapeutic setting, when I was doing working with the Department of Child and Family Services. So he actually founded something that used to be called the collaborative problem solving approach, which was all about working with students or children who have maybe been through trauma, abuse, or neglect and are more resistant or defiant to intervention. So it's about collaborating with them to help instead of working against them. A lot of times when we look at kids who have like defiant behaviors, it's all about externally controlling them and punishing them. And so his model really was about working with them to create solutions. And what he's found in his research is that it's better not only for the kids because they learn the skills that they need to be successful, but it's also better for the adults because it's less frustrating for you to collaborate with the kid than to feel like you're spending all of your time punishing them. So the collaborative problem solving approach there was like a schism, and I'll be honest, I don't know all of the details about that, but Dr. Ross Greene has now kind of formed this collaborative and proactive solutions model, which is based on the same research. So I'm going to share a few ideas. So this website is a great website. He talks about like challenging kids. So if you're in preschool, we might talk about challenging behaviors, but he talks about why kids can be challenging and what that looks like. And so this is a really good website, and it does have resources here for parents and families. It does have resources here for schools. There's paperwork, there's trainings, and I really think that a lot of what he does is great for people who, since it was not all, it's evidence-based, but since it was not all designed for therapeutic use, for like, you don't have to be a therapist necessarily to use it. It's got a very strong parent component. A lot of there's been a little bit of talk, and I think some of the talk as far as like opening up the country again has been based upon the fact that we see an increase in child abuse and domestic violence when stress levels are high. And so part of what we need to do is give parents resources and tools to be able to manage behaviors. So those kiddos that are in your building and maybe are kind of hard to manage in your building, parents may need some support to manage that as well. So there's a couple of things that you want to look at in terms of how to help solve problems. And the first thing you want to be focusing on is, what are the skills that are missing? So he talks about lagging skills. So when we're talking about kids who are not doing their schoolwork, right? So they aren't logging on and doing their e-learning, they're not doing their assignments. Maybe they're having more conflicts at home. I just was talking to a clinician not long ago who was talking about a client that she has who's now, who had been doing really good, not engaging in some inappropriate activities, and now his stress level is up and he's catching himself doing that a little bit more. You want to talk about what those skills are that are missing. So when you think about your students who are not doing their e-learning, we think about those basic things like, do they have access? Well, if they have access, so what skills might they be missing? So maybe they have a poor sense of time. That's a skill. Not being able to manage your time or be aware of time, that's actually a skill. Not being able to maintain their focus, that's a skill. So if you're looking for how can you support them, the first thing you want to think about is, what skills are missing that might be contributing to this problem. So this is a PDF that you can get right from this website. You can download it. And so if you're having conversations right now about how to make students do their e-learning, I would go right to this website, print this out and say, guys, let's go through each of these 10, 20, 50, 100 kids and see how many of these kids are struggling with these skill levels. Because once you figure out what skills are missing, then you're going to implement a tool to support them in acquiring that skill. Remember, we're still teaching, we're still educating. We may not do it exactly the way we want to be doing it, but if we're teaching them the sense of time that they need, which is going to help them be successful in life, whether or not they get an A+ in, geometry isn't the skill that they need right now. What they need is the focus of the sense of time. So don't underestimate the value of working on some of these skills, even though they're not necessarily 100% linked to academics. So you go through, you identify those lagging skills, what problems might be causing that, and then you want to work with the kid to solve the problem. And so then this is a second worksheet. Again, all of these are listed on that website. So you think about, well, what are these problems? And this might be something that you're doing in collaboration with the teachers who are saying so-and-so isn't doing his work. This might be in collaboration with the parent, and you don't necessarily have to use the worksheet with the parent. You just kind of work through the steps with the parent. Like, hey, I'm having a really hard time getting him to log on. I have to be at work. I can't sit here over top of him. So then the key here is that when you have a problem, the kid is never the problem. The missing skill is the problem, the lack of resources is the problem, but the kid is never the problem. However, the kid is a part of the solution, okay? So what you look at is, I'm gonna first of all let the kid identify what they see as a problem, which is, might be anything from there's too much work to do, or I'm bored, or whatever. Let the kid identify the problem. Then let the adults identify some problems, right? And then let's talk about what might be a solution. And this is where you come up and you do some brainstorming and you decide what you're going to work on. So if you can get the parents and the kids on the table to do this, great. This would be a perfect time to have a little mini session, a little 30-minute session with them. If you are just kind of doing this between you and your colleagues and you're not able to get excuse me, the parents and kids involved, that's okay too. You can still do this process, and this is a problem-solving plan, okay? If you're not sure what the problem is, this is a really super, super awesome cheat sheet. I would encourage you to pass this along to your staff members. If they are doing, if they in fact are doing some of those calls to their students, like I know a lot of times that gets passed off to counselors and social workers to make these calls, but this is really something that teachers can do. So it really gives you a great cheat sheet as far as how to reflect while you're listening to clarify what is being said. So reflective listening basically involves mirroring what the child has said and then encouraging him or her to provide additional information by saying one of the following things, right? So that's a really great step for them. It gives some examples. So you want to break down the problem, and then you want to make sure that you're observing and summarizing. So these are just some really great tools for if you're saying like we're having a problem, we need to be working towards a solution. If you've got administrators saying to you like we need to figure out how to get these kids to do their work. I shared in the group yesterday a really great thing that I saw from one of the schools in my hometown. They were doing kind of drive-by drop-off care packages to kids who were caught during this period, and didn't know exactly what period it was. Maybe it was a week prior, where they were caught doing the right thing by logging in and doing their work, and so they each got a little care package, right? So we definitely have that positive reinforcement piece, which should take up the bulk of our time. We talked about how you divide your time, so that positive reinforcement, that universal support should take up a chunk of your time. But then you also know that there's going to be kids who are, because of this or even before this, maybe be identified as needing a little bit more support. And these are some of the things that you can use. And again, all of these are found on this website, this Lives in the Balance website, and they are definitely great resources for you to use for yourself and also to share with staff members. So does anybody have any questions about that CPS model, that Lives in the Balance model? How to use that with your staff members, maybe even a particular problem you want to kind of go through. I'm going to check the chat box. Feel free to share if there's something specific that you'd like to kind of go in on that a little bit more. I'm a big fan of Ross Greene. He actually had a documentary that came out last year, and I worked so hard to try and get a screening here in town and couldn't get it worked out. But he has a documentary about working with tough kids as well. Let me see if that's on this website too. Yeah, I can't. Oh, The Kids We Lose. Yep, there it is. This movie, excellent, excellent movie. The Kids We Lose. It is really, if you work in a district or in a building where you have a high number of kids who've experienced child abuse and neglect, if you have a high number of kids who have, you know, ADHD or who have a significant amount of trauma, this is a really great documentary. I would highly recommend watching it for a staff PD. I would highly recommend doing it as even like an independent PD where you guys can watch it independently. It's a great film. It's done really, really well. I want to say it's maybe like 90 minutes or something, but it follows students. It tells some great stories. It's just really, really well done. And it's designed to make sure that we are thinking a little bit differently about how we support those kids. And it goes completely in line with my beliefs about what we need to do. Sharing Lisa, which information were you thinking about?
Any of this information that you're showing right now, so I don't have time to print it out, or?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So I will make sure those links are included, it'll be either in the description of the video on YouTube, or it'll be in the email that comes out afterwards. Absolutely.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you.
Tracy, okay, so this film used to be on PBS. Now, if you know anything about documentaries, the way that they work, like there's a particular amount of time that they are licensed for different organizations. And so I don't know who has it licensed right now. I know that you can purchase a license. So like if your district was interested in showing it for like a staff PD, I know that they can purchase a license. And I honestly think it's maybe a few $100s. I don't think it's very expensive. So it is probably one of the best. And when I looked into it, and this was, like I said, at least a year ago, when I looked into it at the time, there's a way that you can have a license and you can actually, depending upon your budget, can even get Dr. Ross Greene to facilitate a conversation about the movie. It's just a really, if you work in a district where maybe you are seeing an increase in child abuse and neglect and you feel like people don't have enough awareness and you want to just start a conversation, it's a really great piece for that. Definitely, it needs to be a part of a bigger program. So people, once they have this awareness, then they need to know what to do with it. But it's a really great place to start. So I really think it's a good one. So I know you can find, let me see, we'll just see here. Probably, right. So here's the information about the movie. So there's a trailer. And I think if you if you want to hold a screening, so there might be some screenings around. If you want to hold a screening, there's probably information here. Yeah, so right now, when there's not much going on outside in the world, there's probably not any screenings going on, but you can definitely find it as well. Okay, so that is that. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and I had just a couple of ideas, because part of what we are talking about right now is how can we continue to connect with our students and families and support them when we are not close to them. And part of doing like telehealth or connecting with kids over technology is they need to have some access to things in their homes, and we don't always know what they have access to. So if you have the opportunity, I would definitely look at sending some type of a care package or sending some type of a resource to your student's home to make sure they have those tools available. But I'm going to go through just a couple of ideas that I found just kind of looking around today and over the last couple of days that I thought might be really helpful. One thing that you want to make sure that you remember, even though you are in a technology-based process right now, continue to do the things that you've always done, which is focus on relationships with kids, engage them. Sometimes that's more challenging over technology, sometimes it's not. So don't assume that they have access to anything at home that you haven't given them, but definitely make sure that you're sharing things with parents and families that they can use as well. So I'm going to go through a couple things that I found, and hopefully you can see this on your screen. So this is anybody ever used Oriental Trading Company to get things for your programs? No. Okay. So if you've ever done like old-fashioned vacation Bible school from back in the day, we used to use Oriental Trading Company to get things at a really, really cheap price to do activities for kids. So I put a few things into my cart, and I'm just going to go through those things with you that I think could be used for therapeutic sessions. And one of the things that I would encourage you to do, if you have the budget, and I'm going to show you how you can do it really really inexpensively, excuse me. If you have the budget, to create a little care package for kids. You'd be amazed at how much engagement you can get. It could be cheap little trinkety stuff from the dollar store, but you would be amazed how much engagement you get from a kid who gets to open up a package from you. It's just amazing. They get excited about it. The parents get excited about it. It takes the pressure off of the parents feeling like they have to have all of these things at home. And it builds connection. So if you have, let's say you have a small group, you're doing a session, you want to do a session with 10 kids, you mail out these 10 envelopes to 10 kids, and then all 10 of them have the same thing. And now they're on the screen and they all can show that they all 10 have the same thing. That feels like a connection point, right? And these we normally would do things like if you would normally have, a school event or a parent engagement night, your school probably has a budget in their Title I funds for family engagement events. You just want to talk to your administrator about siphoning a little bit of that money off to put into a virtual event, right? So that your entire school is doing the same thing at the same time, or your small group is doing the same thing at the same time. So here's some things that I would encourage you to try. So I shared with you a couple weeks back my self-care box, which is just a little paper, like a little, oh good, Lisa says you can watch the film on PBS still. Perfect. I love free Lisa. So you can get these little DIY boxes, right? So if you're thinking about what would I do for my graduating seniors, there's so many things that you can do with one of these boxes. So you can give them the box. You can also give them some paint to go with it or some markers to go with it. You can talk about their self-care box. That's an activity, right? So they can decorate the box, and then you can talk about what goes into your self-care box. And now we're going to talk about some of those things that you might bring up during your session in just a little bit. You could talk about, you might say for a high school senior who's maybe having some different feelings about not being able to go through that transition the way they planned. We could talk about this box is their whole high school experience and what is a part of their high school experience that they want to take with them, what would they want to leave behind and not take with them, those kind of things. So you can get, say, 12 of these little boxes, right, for $15. So that's a little bit more than $1 a piece. You put that with a little, pack of markers or a pack of paint and send those out to your seniors. And now all of a sudden they have a joint senior activity where they might not be able to have that prom that they were expecting to have, but now they have a joint activity. You could do the same thing with like a sip and paint. You can do the same thing with that. Maybe you have the art teacher guide them through a painting technique, and you mail paints and canvases to every senior. So now they don't have prom or they don't have senior skip day, but now they have something else that's unifying them, right? There can be therapeutic applications to that as well. You can talk about, how this is a stress relieving activity, how, what colors they choose to use and how the colors relate to different emotions, all kinds of things, right? If you have some kids that maybe have struggled with emotional regulation, you can give them these little mini slime kits. So you can get, I think this is like 50 pieces for $10, right? So that's like, I'm not going to do math today. That's super cheap. But you could mail those out, and probably postage on something that small would be really inexpensive. That's just a little activity that kids can do at home. We can talk about how that's a stress reliever. This little doorknob hanger, I thought, first of all, this is like that little, I don't know if you remember this we did this in school, where you would color different colors on your paper, and then you would color over it in a black crayon. And then you could scratch out and have like something like magically appear because the colors underneath would pop through. They have those pre-made for you, and these are little door hangers, right? So we could talk about, how kids can share their emotions, how they can request private time or request quiet time by putting out their doorknob hanger. This is 12 for $7. So again, less than $1 a piece. And these are actually small enough that they would fit in a regular size envelope. So for, $1, literally $1 per kid, that's a pretty good price point. And if you wanted to do those for a family, you might put 4 or 6 in an envelope, and then, that's, a few bucks for a family activity. That will be a really great way to engage. Now, this one is a mirror kit. Depending on whether you're public school or private school, it comes with the letters to say this is who God loves, but you could definitely open the kits up, take the God part out if you are a public school, and kids could just have the mirror, and that you talk about emotion, how you express emotion. Show me your face for being angry. Show me what it looks like when you're sad. Show me your face when you're worried or disappointed, those kinds of things. But again, this is 12 for $10. And the key with Oriental Trading Company is you want to order everything at the same time, because the more you order, the less the shipping is. Up to free. Like if you're ordering more than $30, I think it's the shipping is free. So you ship it all to one spot. Then you would have to divide it up, obviously, and mail it back out. But those are really great ways to continue to keep families engaged. to use up the money that you have. Title I is one of those funds, like if you don't use it, you lose it. So if they haven't, if you had, you know, a bunch of activities scheduled for the spring and you're not going to be able to do it, don't let that money go to waste. Go ahead and find something that can engage parents and families. And there's always a way to put a therapeutic spin on it. I can put a therapeutic spin on pretty much anything, guys. So there's always a way to put a therapeutic spin on it. Good. Lisa did that for an SEL video lesson. Kids love it. Awesome. Awesome. Absolutely. So that's a couple things here. I'm going to share. Let's see. Where is my other? And this website, I think I shared this website with you guys already. This 180 Connections. Did I share this with you guys? Rachel's Challenge. So they have really super simple little activities. So like this week's activity is tell what integrity means to me, share a story and example, and then you'll have a conversation about that, right? So that's the simple kind of lessons that they have. But I thought there's one down here that I thought was super cute. So let's say you're talking about something they miss about school, right? And this could be used for little kids. This could be used for older kids. What's something you miss about school? What's something that you are sad about missing out of your senior year? What's something you're worried about for the summer? What's something you're thinking about? And then have them draw that, you know, write that out. What words can they come up with to describe that? Where do you feel that in your body? And then you might have them kind of, you know, think, pair, share, and interact with each other. Those are the simple ways that we can continue to connect with kids in little ways, virtually, even without having a full-blown lesson. You know, like it doesn't, I don't want you to think that you've got to spend 30 full minutes, that you've got to plan, because I think we're at that point now. Some of us are going to be going through the end of May. So I have some friends who are going into June in terms of the school year continuing. But you get to the point where you're thinking like, I'm running out of ideas, guys. I don't know what else to do. I want you to get simpler and easier and not making yourself crazy, because what people really need is that engagement and activation. They don't need a perfectly planned lesson. They just need to be able to connect, and they need to have something that they can take with them onto their day. So, you know, when you're talking about something you miss at school, what you get to take is it's normal to feel that you miss something. It's normal to be grieving this loss. It's normal to feel this way. And lots of people have the same feeling you have. I've seen a couple people in a couple groups talking about some kids who've completed suicide recently. And, you know, that concern that the longer we're isolated, people who were already kind of struggling begin to have more struggles. Part of how we counteract that is we make sure that they still feel connected, that we normalize the feelings that they have, and that we show them a path towards feeling better. So those are some things that we want to work on. Does that make sense to everybody? Any thoughts on that? Anybody have anything they want to share? With that, I'm going to check the comments here. Let's see the comments. So Gina's on Facebook and she said, sometimes it feels like we're in an island, even on the best of times. So definitely it feels more like that now. And that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. It feels like you're on an island and like everybody is just sailing by too. Like you're over there on the island and everybody's sailing by. So I'm glad that we've been able to connect in this way and not have that. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to talk about today is how we are taking care of ourselves. So I would love everyone, I want 100% completion if I can get that today. For everybody in the chat box, or if you want to unmute yourself, I'd like one word that would describe how you think you're doing right now. And you can take that mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, you can take that however you want, but one word that you would use to describe how you are right now. Because I'm hearing from people, they're still feeling lots of stress. They're still feeling overwhelmed. They're not able to kind of shut off their brain. I saw an article, and I might share it in the group later today. I saw an article about how this work from home life has actually extended the workday. So now people are working more hours and they're working longer and they're having less separation between work life and home life. And so if you weren't great with boundaries before, it's like now it's on amplified 100% because now you don't really actually have any boundaries. And there's some brain science reasons for that, right? So if you were routinely driving to work and driving home, that drive was a natural transition point. It was a ritual for you. It was a signal to your brain that says turn on, turn off, right? And we don't have that. So if we haven't done something to consciously create that for ourselves, our brain doesn't have that. So you'll catch yourself checking email all the time, and you'll catch yourself, thinking about kids more. And it's not like we didn't do it before. It's not like we never checked email before, but it just wasn't all the time. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So I don't know if I've ever shared on here before that I am a preacher's kid. So part of how I learned to work with at-risk kids and to work with struggling families was through my church ministry with my parents. And this lesson I think that I got from working with my parents and watching my parents not have good boundaries and burn the candle at all ends and in the middle is that is probably something we have to really focus on right now, which is that we are never going to be able to 100% help everybody. We weren't able to before, and we're not going to be able to now. And as disappointing as that is the reality, and we have to acknowledge that. Some of us will plant, some of us will be that sunlight that nurtures the seed, and some of us will harvest. And so we don't know at any given day of the week which part we are in the process. Maybe today we're planting the seed and it won't be blooming for 10 years from now. Maybe someday, maybe today we get to reap this harvest of some seed that was planted 10 years ago. But we have to take peace in the fact that we're a part of the process, and not that we're going to be able to accomplish everything every day. And when there's so much uncertainty, we want to find things that we can control. So we're going to talk about what some of those things are in just a second. So let's see what you have in the chat. Weary. Ooh, that's a hard word. Okay, hard word, but good word. Good because I literally feel it. Like I can feel it in my body when you say the word weary. I know what that means. It means that you are plugging along. You're not down yet, but man, it's heavy. It's a heavy feeling. I would say that's probably what we feel as a country, is just weary. Like, what else is it? How much longer? What else can we do? That feeling is a heavy feeling. And if you're not doing something to lighten that feeling, it will definitely wear you down. So I would absolutely encourage you to not only express that feeling and acknowledge that feeling, but let yourself feel it, right? If you feel weary, I'm weary today. We're having peanut butter and jelly for dinner. The end. I mean, I'm feeling weary today. I am going to watch Little House on the Prairie until I feel better. That's it. It's okay. So many of us as helpers don't know how to help ourselves. And so if nobody else gives you permission today, I am giving you permission to feed your children whatever they want to eat, to take care of yourself, because when you are a helper, when you've chosen to be a helper, and I feel this so deeply for, frontline workers like nurses and doctors, but even like the housekeeping people at the hospital who never get the praise that they deserve, but are literally there cleaning up after God knows what, right? When you feel that weariness, sometimes you just need somebody to say, it's okay for you to feel what you feel, and you don't have to plug on through. You now have people all over your entire community looking at you for answers, and you do not have to have all the answers. You don't. You do not have to have all the answers. You can do the best that you can with what you have, but no, you do not have to have all of the answers, and that is absolutely okay. And no one will be hurt if you can't come up with more, right? If you can't come up with more, nobody's going to be hurt. You're going to do the best that you can with what you have, and that's it. Okay? Now, next. So let's see here. Tracy says, she's on Facebook, and she says unproductive. Okay. Yeah, unproductive is a hard one for me. Let me tell you why unproductive is a hard one for me. Because I believe in being productive. So I always want to have, like, one of my core values is that I want to use all of my resources well. And so when I feel like I'm not using my time well, I feel like I've not done what I should do. So the best suggestion I can give you for feeling unproductive or inadequate or like you're not meeting the expectation is to actually write down what you've actually accomplished in the day. You'd be amazed how many things you have done without even thinking about it. How many people you have connected with, how many families you have served, how many hugs you have given out, how many high fives you have given out, how many people you have encouraged, how many resources you have secured. You would be amazed. And if you really start to think about the number of people that you have impacted, you feel much more productive. But what we look at is, and this is a classic thing that happens in the school building. I had 10 things on my list to get done today. I started number 1, and that took me down this giant rabbit hole, and I feel like I've accomplished nothing. But what you have accomplished was being present for whatever was necessary in that moment. And think about if you hadn't been present in that moment, what might have happened, right? Maybe you have a conversation that was supposed to be a 7-minute conversation with the mom, and she decided to go down a rabbit hole ranting about how horrible this kid is and how she can't stand it. But what you actually did was prevent that kid from being abused tonight, because mom did not have the tools and resources that she needed to manage her own emotions. And so you gave her the time she needed to vent before she went back to her kid, right? We got to get really clear about what we are actually accomplishing. If we are looking at our productivity as a checkbox, sometimes that's not going to be what it is. We're in a crisis mode, and that checkbox is just not going to, I mean, we might not get the checkboxes. And I love a good checkbox, guys. I do. I love a good checkbox. But right now, that is not. So part of what we have to do in terms of our self-care is become more realistic about what we actually can accomplish, right? So be more realistic, like really get real and clear about that. The next thing you want to do is check and see where your coping skills are. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out a piece of paper, and I'm going to go through a list of coping skills. Now, this is not an exclusive list of coping skills. It's just kind of a brainstorm list of coping skills. But some of these that I'm going to go through are positive, right? Meaning that they, more times than not, will benefit you in reducing your stress level, but they will also benefit you in terms of they have the least amount of negative impact on other people around you, okay? So I'm going to go through that positive list, and I want you to give yourself a point for every positive coping skill that you are actively using right now. So just give yourself a little tally mark for each one of those. Then I'm going to go through the negative list. Now, I call it negative not because it's necessarily bad or wrong, but because it tends to, while it may decrease your stress levels some, it also tends to have negative effects on you or other people, okay? So it's not that these can't ever be used, but you want to use them sparingly, okay? So I'm going to go through the positive list first. You're going to give yourself a tally mark for every positive, and then we're going to give yourself a tally mark for the negatives, and we'll tell you what to do at the end. Okay, so the positive ones, deep breathing. So that could be actively doing a deep breathing sequence, like a square breathing, in for 4, out for 4, hold for 4, you know. Or it could just be taking 3 deep breaths before you scream at your kids, right? So deep breathing. Stretching. So actively allowing your muscles to release. Most of us carry tension anywhere in our neck and our shoulders, you know, kind of hunching up. If you're spending more time on a computer than you've ever before, you're probably doing this, which does all kinds of horrible things to your posture. So stretching your body is actually a very positive coping skill. Meditation, where you actually stop and get quiet and still, and maybe even do some visualization with that. Listening to music is one of my favorite coping skills. As long as you're not frustrating the people around your house by blasting it, you're probably doing a pretty good thing with that. Exercising or physically moving your body, yoga, going for a walk. How many of you are getting outside to even just go for a little basic walk here today? Reading, and that can be reading for pleasure or reading for growth. Going, like I said, going for a walk, taking a hot bath or a hot shower. I swear my water bill has increased significantly. My kids love to take hot baths and hot showers, but it is a coping skill, so I'm allowing it. Socializing with friends. While we can't be out with friends, you still can have that Zoom call, or you can get on the group chat, socializing with friends. Sitting outside and relaxing. I've done that every time the temperature gets above 60 degrees. I find a way to get a little bit of sunshine outside. And then engaging in a hobby or something that you enjoy. So give me go ahead and give me in the comments how many of those that you have. Five. Okay, that's not bad. Good. 5 is not bad. Okay, good. I'm glad. All right. 10, good. 7, good. Good. All right, those are good. All right, excellent. All right, so now we're going to look at some of those that are not quite so positive. All right, so these are coping skills, meaning that it will, in some cases, decrease your stress level, but it probably is going to have some negative consequences for you as well. Yelling. I am a yeller. I'm a reform. Look, I'm a yeller in reform, so I definitely am better than I used to be. But I absolutely know that when I am stressed, I yell more. Absolutely. So that is something that I have to be aware of. Because while it may temporarily feel better, like 3 seconds later, I feel horrible. So being aggressive or combative, if you find yourself picking fights with everyone, some people do that to diffuse tension in themselves, but it usually causes negative consequences. Here's one I think that most of us have been doing: overeating. I tend to overeat particular types of food when I'm stressed, not vegetables and healthy things, but overeating. Drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. While I don't care one way or the other whether or not people drink, I have definitely seen a whole lot more people looking for delivery margaritas and wine in my Facebook groups than I've ever heard before. And I do wonder if part of that is stress. Smoking, biting your fingernails, taking excessive amounts of drugs, or using illegal drugs. This is kind of another one: skipping meals. So I've never been one of those people that was a skipper of meals, but skipping meals can also be a coping skill for some people. Withdrawing from family or friends. So avoiding conversations. If you put, family members on decline a bunch of times, or you're not responding to text messages. So let's see how many of you feel comfortable to share how many of those negative ones you've been engaging in. And I'm going to check with the comments here. Okay, good. All right, so you guys are you're doing better than you thought you were, maybe. So if you're only doing a few of the negative ones and you're doing a good chunk of the positive ones, that is exactly what we want to see. If you still don't feel good, right? What's important is that you have a self-care plan that incorporates a variety of ideas, right? So some of you may be doing okay, but what you're not doing is giving yourself enough of those things. So maybe you're saying like, okay, I read a book. Yeah, I took a walk, but you're not prioritizing that, right? So instead of focusing on prioritizing being more productive, focus on prioritizing a little bit more of those positive coping skills. And there's 2 reasons for doing that. Number one, it's going to feel good and protect you from burnout. But the second thing is you're going to become more productive when you've taken good care of yourself, right? Because you're not going to be as depleted. So if you would normally have given yourself maybe an hour of reading a week, but you really, really love to read, you might be giving might need to give yourself an hour a day right now, right? So you want to create a plan that meets you where you are right now. And that's the thing that we want you to also be sharing with parents and students and your fellow staff members. Because a lot of people right now, and I'm going to tell you a huge thing for people right now, they do not recognize the emotional toll of what we're going through right now. So they're saying things like, there's no reason for me to be this tired. I didn't even go anywhere today. There's no reason for me to be this tired. I usually do 10,000 steps a day. There's no reason for me to be this tired. I've only done 150 steps. No, you're tired because you haven't done the steps, because those steps usually recharge you and invigorate you. So you're actually, you should be feeling not great right now, because right now you don't have what you need. So you want to normalize that, make them a little bit more aware of what they need, and then encourage them and invite them and give them permission to. And yes, it's okay to give them permission to go ahead and prioritize that. I'm hearing such variety from educators, like administrators who are doing an awesome job checking in with staff members, giving them encouragement, telling them to take care of themselves and do what they need to do, to administrators who are doing exactly the opposite. So you might be the only person in their life that says, yes, I want you to prioritize getting outside today. Even if it just means you're sitting on your deck, socially distanced from your neighbors, yelling across the backyard and saying, oh my God, I can't believe these kids, or whatever, right? You got to give yourself permission to do that, okay? So that is a really important thing that we want to make sure that people know to do. The other thing you want to make sure is that your self-care plan includes all the different aspects of wellness. And so we talked about the different aspects of wellness, like that I believe, and you'll find different people define it different ways, but you know that it's got to include something for your physical wellness, your emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness, your social wellness, and I even include financial wellness. And so a lot of educators are feeling secure right now because they're still getting their paycheck, right? But I know I've seen some school districts already talking about laying people off or decreasing hours, or people who were on a year-by-year contract, they're not necessarily going to be called back. So part of self-care is making sure there's not dis-ease there or disease there, but part of it is also making sure that you're protecting yourself. So having conversations with people about, their financial situation. And that doesn't mean you have to become a financial planner, but it just means, like, say, hey guys, if you have concerns, I saw this great website, or I found this good, article, just kind of check on yourself, right? The other thing is to remember that because we're in a point of crisis, you want to make sure that you've got kind of a booster of good self-care stuff. So maybe you have some good stuff that you normally use, but you need a little bit of a booster. So let's do a little bit of brainstorming here before we wrap up about some of the things that you know or that you've tried that give you a little immediate boost in your mood, right? So I can immediately boost my mood by putting on New Edition and dancing in my kitchen. I could immediately boost my mood, right? And I have a Pandora station that if I listen to that Pandora station, it takes me right back to my childhood. I don't know what's going to play at any given moment, but it's going to be something from, the 80s/90s, and it will immediately boost my mood. And I know that if I'm in a bad space and I just want to feel better, I can immediately boost my mood. So what are some of the things that you guys are doing? And I'm going to read through a list that I've kind of pulled together as well. But what are some of the things that you do that give you an immediate boost to your mood? So this is kind of your self-care emergency plan, okay? So I'm going to read through a few while you chime in the chat. And if anybody wants to unmute, let me know. So writing in a journal, writing down things that I want to affirm for myself, or, if I want to do some visualization and I want to write out something positive, that definitely helps me. Volunteering for a cause that is meaningful is a helpful one. Making a gratitude list is great, right? Making a gratitude list is really great. I'm not a pet person, but I know people that tell me that it feels good to snuggle with your pet. I'm not a pet person, but snuggling with your pet, but even just giving your kids a hug sometimes can give you a little bit of a boost. treating yourself to something that you actually enjoy in terms of food. So if you have a favorite restaurant, if you feel comfortable to get some takeout from your favorite restaurant right now and just give yourself permission to have that. Cooking every night, I'm over it. But giving yourself permission to have your favorite meal, that is a great one. Taking a nap. I took a nap a couple days ago. I was like, you know what? I'm just tired and I'm taking a nap. Taking a nap can actually be a great mood reset. You want to make sure you keep it at 90 minutes or less, usually, because you want to make sure you get through a full sleep cycle, but not too far into another, so that you don't wake up feeling more tired than when you lay down. But taking a nap can be good. I wouldn't have said this before, but I found this one online and I think it's probably true. Laying in the grass. Like, I would have never done that before. And I probably, depending on how my allergies are acting, I wouldn't do that necessarily now, but it's something about being connected to the earth feels really good. So maybe you walk through the grass, you smell a flower, those kind of things. That connection to nature can really feel good. Reading a good book, sometimes trying something new, getting your hands messy, painting, sometimes just turning off all electronic devices and having silence can be really amazing. Having a movie marathon, watching something that you really enjoy. I love a good chick flick. My kids won't watch them with me, but I love them. So if I'm watching Terms of Endearment and Steel Magnolias, I'm gonna feel better. I feel bad and feel better all at the same time. So those are some of the things that I came up with. Let's see what you guys have in your list. Texting a friend, funny memes. I tell you what, a funny meme will really give you an immediate mood boost. Music, pets, naps, silence, and mindless TV. Yeah, mindless TV is a good one. Yeah. Comedy is a good one as well. So you want to make sure that you have that emergency list, and that when you, and this can sometimes help when you have an accountability partner. So maybe you feel really bad and your accountability partner said, girl, you sound like you need a nap. Take a nap. I'll talk to you in an hour, right? You need somebody to give you that. So maybe that's part of what we do, for this last month, is look for like who could be my accountability partner to say like, yes, you need to take a break. Yes, I want you to, how are you doing on your self-care today? Or you sounded really depleted. What do you need? Sometimes we need to have that. Gina says sitting outside, reading, video chatting with her dad. Yep, Hallmark movies. Now, I haven't really gotten into Hallmark movies in a while, but I know for a lot of people, they really do boost your mood. So try it out. It used to be Lifetime movies for me. I used to watch Lifetime movies. I don't watch them as much anymore, but I used to be like, oh, a good Lifetime movie, would really do a good job for me. But and I am a person that will set the DVR and record stuff, and then just watch it later. It's not even that I necessarily want to see it right now, but I know that I have something I can go back to and look at when I want to. Okay, so make sure that you're doing that. But I also want to make sure that you are focusing on those things that you can control versus the things that you cannot control. And that's what we'll end with today, because we still, there's still so much uncertainty right now. Things that we don't have any answers. I had hoped that at the end of this, May time, this in Indiana, our stay home order went through May 1st. So it hasn't been extended yet, but I kind of had hoped that when May came around, it would just expire and we'd be great. And now it's really uncertain. We don't know whether or not it's going to expire. But allowing yourself that, and this is an activity you can absolutely do with kids, is, draw that circle. What's inside the circle I can control. What's outside the circle I cannot, right? So some of those things that I maybe can't control is how long I'm going to be stuck under the stay-at-home order. How many people ultimately will be affected by this, or whether or not somebody in my family get this, when businesses will open, when they won't, when I'm going to get another paycheck, all of those types of things. When some of those things that I have been looking forward to will become a reality. Like, some of those things I just can't control. But what can I control, right? I can control what I do while I'm at home, within reason, right? I can control my mindset, my attitude. I can control my emotions. I can control what I say to other people, what I do with other people, and how I do that. I want to focus on those things. So maybe I'm, making sure that I'm not feeling bad about what I feel, but allowing myself to feel it and move through it, that I'm making sure I'm sleeping properly, that I have a good routine and some good habits and rituals that guide me through my day. So those are some of the things that I can control. So focusing on what we can't control versus what we can, that is another piece of good self-care, and giving ourselves permission. So there's some things, guys, that we cannot control. I cannot control whether or not my families have access to technology or whether or not they're doing their schoolwork. I can't. I can definitely provide them with resources and tools, but ultimately I can't control whether or not they use those things, right? And so let yourself off the hook for some of these things that you can't control. And give yourself permission to do the best that you can with what you have, and hope that the best will come from it from there. So the last thing we'll say is, I think what I'm planning to do is maybe go like once every 2 weeks with these sessions. So I will notify you guys when we'll have another one. I'm anticipating, let me look at the dates here. So I'm anticipating maybe we'll do another one, maybe like around May 8th. Fridays work well for me, but if another day works well for you guys, feel free to chime in the comments and let me know, and I'm happy to consider another day. Fridays, I mean, pretty much any day works well at this point, but I chosen Fridays just because my kids didn't have school on Fridays, and I know some other districts are doing like Monday through Thursday for student learning, and Fridays are off. So I think we'll plan on meeting again on May 8th. So I will definitely make sure that you get an access to the link. It'll have to be a different link. I set this up with Zoom before they changed some of these other guidelines. So I will have to set up a new Zoom link. And it'll have a password because everything after a certain date now has a password. So I will make sure that you guys have access to that. And if you have questions before then, you know that I always answer my email. So you're welcome to email me, and I will absolutely respond with what I can find. And please know that you never overwhelm me when you send me an email or ask me a question or tell me a problem. I actually really enjoy that because it gives me direction with what I'm doing for that day or that week. Right? So if you email me and say, hey, what am I going to do with this? I may not have an immediate answer, but it gives me my direction with like, oh, this is what the resource I need to be looking for this week. So don't ever feel bad about asking me questions. If I don't have an answer, I will absolutely find you one or point you in the right direction. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So if I don't have the answer, I'm just going to point you in the direction of who does have the answer and let you get that information from there. So oh, you're very welcome, Tracy. Very welcome. So I will talk to you guys soon. Enjoy, hopefully, a little bit of sunshine wherever you are, and I will talk to you guys soon.